Revelation 1463. From the 9th of June 1940. Arrogance. Consciously requesting divine power. Your greatest mistake is that you think you are in full possession of all power and believe to master the earthly life alone. And therefore you reject the thought far from you that you are in need of help and therefore could also call for help once. And therefore your attitude towards God is negative, you do not recognize Him, and so His constant work is not apparent to you. And this is an extremely dangerous attitude, because you thereby still reduce the power which God lets you receive for the physical life. He must diminish it to let you recognize your own powerlessness. He must let illness and physical suffering come over you so that you recognize a higher power in it. The supply of power from God will be given to you in the way you intend to use it. The power out of God is available to you for boundless spiritual maturing, but if you do not request it for this and you only need it for the sake of earthly life, you will also only be able to receive what is absolutely necessary for earthly life, but all spiritual use of power will remain withheld from you until you consciously request it. And this lack of power can only lead you to spiritual decline, because you do not strive for progress and only think of your physical well-being. Divine power has been supplied to you throughout immemorial times without your will being necessary for it. In earthly life, however, the will itself must become active to consciously request the power that is at your disposal, otherwise man would be an unfree being that would again be dependent on the divine will. The union with spiritual power is the actual higher development of the spiritual. Now to impart spiritual power to the being without requirement, would mean to promote the higher development of the spiritual by force, and this is completely impossible according to divine law, because such a course of development could never produce godlike beings. The being can reach the highest through his will, however without letting this become active, all progress is impossible. The human will must therefore always be influenced to turn to God, subordinate itself to Him and therefore also desires power for spiritual welfare. But man's spiritual state is lightless, they do not see the necessity of help from the side of the eternal divinity. They constantly think only of the earthly needs and oppose every spiritual admonition. They are so far from God and do not want to recognize Him in the vicinity. And yet they think themselves far more advanced in their knowledge, because they believe themselves to be unencumbered and free, while they want to impose restrictions and burdens on spiritually striving. And this is how the young generation is educated, so that they believe themselves to be powerful and strong and able to build their earthly life according to a well-conceived plan. And they lack the power supply from God, because they do not desire it. But when the day will come that teaches mankind otherwise, boundless misery and fear will befall people who recognize their own power as void and are exposed to powers they cannot stand up to. Then man will have to decide to perish or to stretch out his hands imploringly to Him whom he has misjudged so far, so that He may help him and let him earthly. But blessed is he who recognizes this in the hours of greatest need. God will help him and save him. Amen.